Um, Hi, folks. Dr. E here, coming at you from the home studio. The recording in the classroom failed again, and I'm getting very impatient with that. That's not fair to you all. So what I'm going to do, at least this time, is I'm going to do a condensed video for you in the online class, talking about what we talked about in class, and see if this works for you. If it works for you and you think it's better, I'll continue to do it this manner, and I'll stop recording the class and trying to send you the link. So appreciate the feedback on that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. I'm going to try and share my screen here. All right, come on. This is a pain. All right, I am working on Zoom right now, and I'm trying to get on our class page as well. So a couple of things basically that I talked about in terms of class. The UT Law School is going to be recruiting. I'm not sure if you can see that. I think you can because it came up via the internet. The UT School of Law is coming to recruit on September the 15th, and their Zoom meeting is 4 to 5. And if you're interested in law school, I would recommend that to you as well. A couple things I always tell English students are the absolute best training for the law is the English major, because what do you do as a lawyer but you read stuff, you think about what it means, and you write opinions about it. That's largely the work of a lawyer. It's what English majors do as well. I'll also say some other things that nobody may ever tell you. One is go to school in the state that you want to practice law in. I have a dear friend who impressed us all by getting into Harvard Law School, went to Harvard, came back, moved to Houston, his hometown, and could not pass the Texas bar. Why? Not because he was dumb, not because Harvard's bad, but because they studied Massachusetts law, which makes sense because Harvard's in Massachusetts, so he didn't learn Texas law. Couple other things to think about. Different schools have different specializations. If you want to do international business, you want to go to Houston. You want to do corporate law, you want to go to UT. If you want to just be a general lawyer who hangs out his shingle, has, you know, the Joe Bob law firm, you want to go to Tech. It's got the highest, it's got a generalist program, and it's got the highest bar pass of any program in the state. And again, I'm not recruiting for any one thing. It's just be aware that different schools have different specializations. Same thing with graduate schools as well, by the way. If you wanted to do a master's and study medieval literature, you need to make sure you can specialize in medieval literature at the graduate program that you apply to. I did not know that when I applied to graduate programs, and I just got very lucky that the grad school I applied to happened to have the ability to specialize in what I want to, but that was not by plan, that was by ignorance. So first thing I want to do is I want to talk to you all specifically about getting your work published, because I am assuming that if you're taking the class, you want to become a working writer and a publishing writer as well. So I'm going to switch to, I made a little PowerPoint, which again, I'm going to switch to that screen. I just talked about this in class, but I figured it'd be easier than you trying to read my scribble on the board. So I'm going to share this. I'm going to start the PowerPoint as well, which is publishing your fantasy as well. So let me say a couple of things. Now's the best time ever to be a fantasy writer. I was at Barnes and Noble, and the entire side wall is fantasy and science fiction, but of those little bays, 3 bays were science fiction and 6 were fantasy. I know that Orson Scott Card in our reading says that science fiction is a bigger and easier to publish in genre than fantasy, and that was true when he wrote the book about 8 or 10 years ago. But quite frankly, Game of Thrones was a game changer in all kinds of ways, and it has really sparked an interest in heroic fantasy. So now's your time if you want to be a fantasy writer as well. So basically, if you want to publish a book, first of all this is assuming you're actually a writer. You don't publish a book until your book is done. You don't. You hear of people getting advances or things like that. That is not for first-time writers. So I'm going to assume before you get started, the price of admission is you got a book. It's ready to go. It's as good as you can make it. It's thoroughly edited. You also need to make a query letter, which we'll talk about that. You can look it up, but we'll also talk about it toward the end of class. But it's basically introducing yourself, describing your project in a sentence or two, asking if they'd be interested in seeing it, and a little bit about yourself, particularly if you published other things. And by the way, college publications, college journals, literary festivals, college awards are important things to put as well. And also an outline, which is sort of a one-page summary of your book that makes it sound like, gosh, Tolkien wish he could have written this book as well. So those are the basic tools that you need. And publishers and agents are going to be asking for some combination of these. Some might just want a query letter. Some might want a query letter and outline. Some might want a query letter and a sample chapters. Other might want to see the whole book. But you need to have those ready at your disposal when you're ready to publish. And basically, book publishing, there are 3 ways to do it. Now, I'm not going to talk about direct publishing or publishing yourself via the internet. This time I'm going to talk about it a little bit later because it's a slightly different animal. But traditional publishing route, you can submit directly to a big publishing house, Macmillan, Daw, things like that as well, via an agent or a small press. And I will mention, you may have heard discouraging news about this, but fantasy is the only genre where you can send your book to a major publishing house and they will read it unsolicited. They will read it without an agent. Daw Books, which is the book that published Exiles Honor, the book that we're reading, you get on their website and they take unsolicited manuscripts. You could send your book to Daw publishers if you had it written as well. So, and then via to an agent and to a small press. So basically, if you want to publish, you need to find out where the publishers are, and there are publication resources. There is Writers Market, and there's also Fantasy and Science Fiction Writers Market, which is actually one of the textbooks for this class. It only exists online, and it was done in 2012, so it might be a little bit out of date. This one or Writers Market as well. I always go to Barnes and Noble and use theirs, quite frankly, as well. And it's divided by subject. Who publishes fantasy? And you look up who, you read those criteria like it's a holy text. The Bible, the Quran, the Torah, and every romantic letter you've gotten from everybody you've been super infatuated with. Read it very careful often and follow their directions exactly. And you send them off. If it says you can do multiple submissions, that means you can send your book off to several places at a time. If it doesn't, you can't. You've got to wait. So, and basically, you follow their directions, you send it off, and you wait to hear back. And again, it might be a query letter, it might be a query letter and outline, might be a query letter and sample chapters. And again, you wait. And this is, as I said, the good news is fantasy is the one genre that publishers will take unsolicited manuscripts from. So be aware of that. Another way is to get an agent. Now, that might sound daunting, or it might sound crazy, or it might sound, why should I get an agent? Well, an agent basically makes her or his or their money if you sell a book. They basically sign a contract with you, you represent them, and they will actually work. They will actually spend time pushing your book to different publishers, and agents can get your books into markets that you cannot get into by yourself. So there's, and they take a percentage, it's a small percentage, and if they work on your behalf, it will be worth it because you'll make much more money with an agent than you would without one generally as well. How do you find an agent? There's a publication called Literary Marketplace. You go find out which agents work with fantasy writers and are taking new clients. Got to be both of those as well. And then again, follow those directions exactly. I did this, I got a New York agent. I will say that my agent got me a much higher class of rejection slip than I was able to get on my own. And then 9/11 happened and just really messed up the publishing industry as well. And so once the agreement lapsed, I just went ahead and I went a different direction as well. Because basically I got enough helpful feedback from the publishers that my agent sent my books to that I knew I was going to have to go in a different direction if I wanted to get published. So I decided to go through the small presses as well, because in case you don't know the story, it was an 1,100-page novel, and everybody said nobody's going to publish an 1,100-page novel from a first-time writer. So at the time, I was reading a biography of J.R.R. Tolkien, and I found out that he wrote this novel called Lord of the Rings, is one long novel. No one would publish it. So he got his manuscript, put it in 3 stacks, said, it's a trilogy. And he sent it off, and they would publish a trilogy, or at least the first novel of the trilogy as well. So I decided my novel was a trilogy as well. So I broke it up into 3 stacks, and I went to the small presses, and I was able to publish with the next publisher I sent it to. So lesson from Tolkien. Pretty much the same process you use as big houses. On the upside, it's easier to access. There's much less wait time. You have a lot more control. You get your own book cover, you get your own blurbs, things like that. Disadvantage is there are no or very small marketing departments, and you have to do all the promotion yourself. My novel, I'm delighted that it was published, but it never sold very well. And the advantage is, unless it goes under, your book will stay unpublished forever, because one thing about fantasy and science fiction is it's very ephemeral. Unless you hit it big, your book will go in print and go away in 6 months. So other ways to get started are readings, open mics, get known, workshops, especially Clarion and Clarion West. These are summer workshops that focus specifically on fantasy and science fiction. And they're really terrific. You'll also get college credit for them. If you can get into a Clarion and Clarion West workshop, it's a career maker, because you get lots of help, you get lots of support, and agents and publishers circle around Clarion and Clarion West like sharks looking for the next big thing. So if you can get into Clarion, go for it as well, or publish in the pulps or monthly magazines. And basically, that is what wisdom I have, but I'm going to go in and start talking about publishing in those monthly magazines as well. And these basically, and you know this, if you're going to publish something, you need to read a lot of it and find out what's there. The big kahuna in fantasy is the magazine of fantasy and science fiction, which is published and has been published for years. And it's a great publication. And Gordon Van Gelder has been doing this since the dawn of time. I mean, not literally, but he's been doing it for a long time. He's very, very supportive, very helpful as well. And read it, you know, it's like $5 if you get an issue on Amazon. And what I would recommend is buy one of each of these copies of each of these magazines over time, not all at once. Just read in them and say, hey, I like this stuff. This stuff is like mine. And that would be like, you know, if you like their stuff and it's like the stuff that you write, then it would be a good market for your work as well. Hard science fiction analog. I mean, it is a crap. Sorry, I did the wrong address. It's actually analog.com, analogsf.com, and there is the current issue as well. And it's hard SF. Then you have Asimov's, and this is the weekly issue. And Asimov's does publish some fantasy as well. It's mostly in SF, but it does publish fantasy as well. And then you have Amazing Stories, which is the oldest one still being published. Astounding and Amazing were the original ones, but this one goes all the way back to John W. Campbell, and it's it. Then there is a newsletter. Again, I have the web address typed wrong. It's sfsite.com, and when you do that, it is literally a newsletter about twice a month. It's a bi-monthly issue newsletter about science fiction, fantasy, publishing, and what's going on. And these are, again, just you need to read these. You need to be aware of these as well. I hope your writing is going okay. I hope you are regularly sharing your writing with your classmates and getting some feedback. And again, we're doing praise, question, wish, because at this point, before you're still creating, and you just need an audience, just need people to read your stuff. And really, this is the most valuable thing you're going to be doing, is having other people read your stuff as well. We're working toward the story, and I mentioned, if you did, the video did go through last time, that, well, I'll talk about this a little bit toward the end, but our drafts of our short stories need to be due the 29th. So I hope your page counts are going well. I had an entire chapter on horseback, 2 people talking. I know I got to change that as well, but I needed to get them to the point where they were going to meet the person that the king is going to court as well. Hope reading reflections are going okay. I was asked the question, like, sort of, what do we want to do? And basically, just like the example from Tuesday's reading from Card, Card gives some general principles and then talks about them through examples. Talked about mice, which is these are the different kinds of fantasy and science fiction plots as well. You need to talk about mice. These are the different elements, you know, milieu, etc. You don't need to detail all the examples that he does as well. And then when talking about Exiles Honor or any of the primary sources that we're reading as well, remember, we want you to read as a craftsperson. What did you notice? And again, you notice the questions I'm asking, they're about craft, about exposition, about how you know things, point of view, things like that as well. So what did you notice as a writer? What can you learn about it as a writer as well? And if you do those things, discuss the fantasy that we read as a writer, what you're getting out of this craft, discuss the readings by kind of summarizing and presenting the high points. It's fine. And I give you another example. I gave one a couple of weeks ago as well. So Exiles Honor, we talked, what I'm going to have you do is do a genre study, or a little a little exercise rather, about Exiles Honor. And I will go ahead and open these questions up. And again, I know I need to share my screen and move to talking about Word. And I'm going to share that. I'm going to pause the recording. I've got to stop the share here. Sorry about this. I'm going to. Okay, so we're back. Got that set up now. So again, this is the exercise, and basically this section had 3 components. Albrecht going to the mind healers, and obviously, you know, it allows them to set up spies, but think about it in terms of craft, in terms of point of view. What does it let us know? What do we know as a result of Albrecht's working with the mind healers? Why is it that important to the plot? Why is that important to the other elements of the novel, like theme as well? And once you think about that, see if you can find another way that Lackey might have given us the same information. The second major component of this section is the fishing scene, which, well, what does it add? It seems to not be a main part of the narrative as well, except for the fact that I believe I've mentioned previously that Selene is the main character of the overarching canon of Lackey's Valdemar novels, and we haven't seen her since she was since she was a young teen or a teenager, and now she's a young adult, but now a full herald. So how does it deepen our understanding of both of these characters? Why is it important? And similarly, the last part is, and the entire last section is what's called the final battle. We haven't read very much as well. You're about to see my cat, probably. But again, think of these in terms of craft. Why have the 3-part structure? Why does she include? What does she leave out? Because she skips huge chunks of the novel, or not of the novel, but of the story to give us a plot, which are the elements that she chooses to include. So those are 3 elements. So I want you to work through that individually as part of the write section for today, and then send that to me. And then let's go back and briefly look at the rest of the agenda as well. I know I saw through email that y'all are sharing each other's work, and that pleases me as well, a great deal as well. And the biggest thing is just see how readers react. Now, the last week in September is going to be the week that we spend workshopping each other's work. And basically, I'm going to put everybody in the online class in their own, in their own group, and you're all going to read each other's work. One of you is going to be like the primary reader, primary respondent, and do a full critique, and the others are going to chime in with everybody as well. But so in order for that to happen, your work needs to be done by a week from Monday as well. So be thinking about what you need to do to take this stuff that you've made from your page count, and some of it's probably good, some from different areas, and then revise that and get that to the point where it can be a complete story as well. I say 12 to 15, could be a little bit shorter, could be a little bit longer. If you're working on a novel, as I am, what's a good beat? What's a good story? What's a good section that would be complete for an interim story as well? And lots of people publish chapters or parts of chapters of their fantasy work, a short story as well. So what would make a scene that would make complete sense as well, if you can't make it into a full-blown short story as well. And then, of course, page count, actually due today, and writing well, and then the weekly reflections are due on Tuesday. And again, I'm sorry that the recording failed. I hope this format is helpful for you all, and let me know if you like that. If you'd like me to keep on doing that, or if you'd prefer just to me put up the recordings of the class and doing this only as a backup. I'm excited that y'all are in the class. I'm enjoying your work, and I look forward to reading more of it. Thanks.